Here's an idea. You had some questions. I got some answers. First things first, before we really get into the weeds here, I just want to say that it was really just, I don't even know. It's hard to describe how it feels to have many people say exceptionally nice and meaningful things about the stuff that you've been making for the last 5 years, and to see the outpouring of support in, for Idea Channel and for me and the team and for everybody who's worked on it. Everybody's talking about how much they're going to miss the show, how much they've loved it, what it's meant to them, was, really meaningful and really means a lot. So before I answer any questions, I just want to say thank you. I want to say thanks to everybody who reached out, who said, had something to say about the show. And yeah, I'm going to stop rambling now because I'm going to get emotional. But thank you. It means a lot. Okay, so we got a lot of stuff to get through, and there were a lot of really important and I think big questions that are worth treating very seriously. We're going to waste no time. We're going to get right into the weeds here. A hot dog is not a sandwich. At least that is the case according to the American Hot Dog and Sausage Council. They seem like they would be the biggest and best authority on the subject, but I do agree that a hot dog is something of a chimera, because if you describe, without, talking about any specific food, what a sandwich is, it would seem as though a hot dog would fulfill most of the requirements. But if you were to say to someone, hey, I'm gonna go, if someone was said, hey, I'm gonna go get some food, what do you want to eat? And you said, I don't know, a sandwich, and they came back with a hot dog, you would, I guess, be having this conversation. You would be confused. That I don't think generally when you say sandwich that hot dog is within the set of things that you would consider to fulfill that label. So I think that there's, it sits in a weird place, obviously. It's neither one nor the other. A hot dog is its own special beast. In more ways than one. Not worth my time. I would love to make you a mixtape, and I will keep as close to the mixtape requirements, restrictions, as I possibly can. I'll put a link in the doobly-doo to a Spotify playlist that is as mixtapey as I can. If I have time, maybe I will even record it on two sides of a tape and then record it off so that you can get the real experience of having to fast forward as opposed to skip and having to switch sides. So there was some confusion after the Idea Channel is ending video about why the show is ending. And I think that makes sense. Like I said in the video itself, it is complicated. I did want to let everybody know, as soon as I possibly could, which, means that there's wasn't a lot of time to put together a very clear statement. There's still a lot of feelings involved, so I apologize for not being as clear as I possibly could, for not maybe not being as clear as I should be, not as clear an explanation as you are owed. But there are some things that I do want to be super clear about. First things first. Funding is not an issue. Idea Channel is not ending because of my paycheck. It's not ending because of PBS budget cuts. It has nothing to do with PBS Digital Studios funding. The funding is not a problem. It's not a question, and it's not a factor in the show ending. I also want to be super clear that Idea Channel isn't ending because, because I'm sick of making it. And I also want to be super clear that Idea Channel's not ending because of negative comments. Which actually, they're really, have you seen YouTube? There are not a lot of negative comments on Idea Channel videos. There are some jerks, but there are jerks everywhere. And I think as far as the internet as a whole, you guys continue to support, I think, one of the best comment, if not the best comment section on YouTube. So it has nothing to do with people who shout about SJWs or whatever. They do not bother me. And so that being the case, that it's not these set of things, I can understand why it's a little confusing. Because I think that when things like this end, it's much more comforting if there's a really clear answer that like, I got fired, I'm upset about something, I'm tired about people who don't like me, the people who make the show don't like me, and none of those are the case. It's much more sort of internal and creative than that, which I think is why the answer is maybe less satisfying than something that involves drama. Honestly, the answer is, after having made the show for 5 years, after having covered tons and tons of material, having had amazing conversations every day, and after, I think, learning how to value perspective, learning how to value difference, learning to treat unexpected things with importance, that it's time to figure out how to do those things with a new perspective. It's time to figure out how to do those things in an unexpected way, and to figure out how to accomplish the goals that Idea Channel set out to accomplish, building a community, having conversations, being critical, treating the experience of people with importance in a fresh format, a fresh show, a fresh something or other. And I know that it's also not satisfying for me to be like, and I don't know what that is, because I don't. And I don't think that it's responsible for me to jump into the next thing immediately without doing what we did when we started Idea Channel, which is to develop the show over 3 months. It took a long time to put Idea Channel together. And so I want to figure out how to do what Idea Channel wants to do, which is, largely what my goals are: convene communities, have conversations, try to understand the human experience now in 2017 with fresh eyes, fresh perspective, newness, and hopefully attack it with, with a sort of renewed sense of purpose and, God, I hate this word, vigor. And so, I don't know if that's more satisfying or more clear. There are going to be more questions that get to why Idea Channel is ending, what I want to do next, as we continue this Q&A. So please continue to watch, and maybe we'll be able to add more detail. But yeah, I think that's the clearest I can be. A lot of people wanted to know what topics and ideas and conversations we never got to have that I always wanted to make episodes about. And I have a list. So I'm just going to read you the list. It's pretty long, but yeah, let's just go through. It is my, I have a wonder list thing. My screen is very dirty, don't judge. So I actually am going to read you from the thing that I write in when I'm having brunch with friends and I'm gotta do an episode about this. So here we go. Ready? Age of Anxiety. I don't really know what that means. I think we sort of got at that with the fidget spinner episode. What will Web 4.0 be? Is conservatism the new counterculture? Which is an idea that, what's his name? Watson? Joseph Watt, the Twitter guy, Prison Planet dude, makes the t-shirts. I think it's not, but I think it's an interesting idea. Should you make more money if robots steal your job? So that's a universal basic income episode. Is everything a game? Which we kind of got to with everything, but I wanted to do a companion episode to that where we confront more fully Ian Bogost's idea about playing everything. Visual tropes in movies, we wanted to do a couple episodes. We had one on the 3-point landing that sort of got half produced. I really wanted to do one on pull focus. The life comes at you fast meme, which is, I think, very funny in the internet age with many things contradicting one another very quickly and people having trouble with consistency. A Gilmore Girls episode just in general. Mary in the Color Room. I really wanted to do an episode about Rubik's Cubes and about intelligence and different kinds of intelligence and whether or not that idea holds water. Really wanted to do something about usernames and having to pick a username and the transition from taking a pseudonym, which was I think more in vogue when I was a youngin' and only on specific places on the internet now than it is, sort of generally now when you get an email address or a Twitter username, it's, more likely you're just going to go with your real name. Really wanted to do an episode about people that design tastes and smells. We had a contact for a place for one of the companies that designs tastes and smells. channels. I really wanted to talk to them about their art and process, about whether you wanted to do an episode about whether or not you could love a robot, if there should be borders. Really wanted to go to Marfa, Texas to talk about the Desert Prada and a couple other things there. Whether or not we should all be trying to cure cancer, which is this question of like, is art even worthwhile? Shouldn't we all be trying to cure cancer, trying to cure Alzheimer's, et cetera, sort of a relative privation episode. Why is climate change hard to understand, which we kind of got at with the End of the World episode. Should we abolish prisons? What is normal/normality? Is cultural Marxism real? Which I think actually Ollie from Philosophy Tube did an episode that sort of touched on this. The answer is it's a conspiracy theory. Was Ayn Rand right? Which I think Ollie also did an episode about, so he took the heat off on those. Really wanted to do episodes also about the Breath of the Wild, the Twin Peaks return, really wanted to do another sort of devices episode, like, I don't know, like something about the iPhone, something about, we mentioned in one episode, smooth ingots of glass and metal, and I really wanted to approach that idea from a industrial design perspective. But, you know, hey, those are all for you. Make the episodes. It's in balls in your court. The Great Whoopdini, more than I could possibly reliably and earnestly communicate. You have no idea. John the Black, if I could only ever read one book for the rest of my life, I think that book would be Labyrinths by Jorge Luis Borges. And I think that it would be that because the number of ideas that you can extract from that one single book that is very light and easy to carry is huge. And I also think that there is something particularly Borgesian about Labyrinths being the only book that you have access to and assuming that it contains every idea you will need. So, you know, it fulfills all of my desires. Matt Storm, Stormageddon. First of all, good to see you. Thanks for writing a comment. Wants to know whether or not what my sort of media comfort food is, and I do have those things. So for music, I think it would be Robert Ashley's Private Parts, which is a record, just two sort of like 15-minute pieces of kind of like spoken word, like new music, opera kind of stuff. It's very hard to describe. I really like it. It's very relaxing. And then also the Dismemberment Plan's Emergency and I, which is one of my favorite records of all time. I think it's probably the thing that I've listened to the most. For video games, I think it would be Brogue, which is a free-to-download, like totally open freeware roguelike that is my go-to airplane game. I have probably played thousands of hours of Brogue, just like waiting for, you know, waiting to arrive places, time to kill at home. Geez, I've just thinking about how many hours I've sunk into that game, and it's a little embarrassing. To a lesser extent, Dwarf Fortress, especially if I already have a game going. But, you know, Dwarf Fortress can be a little bit of an emotional journey, so it's not really very comforting. For movies, this one's a little bit harder, but I actually think the answer to this might be Three Amigos, which is surprisingly the movie that I think I have seen more than any other movie. It might also be Wong Kar-wai's In the Mood for Love, which I have seen a lot. Twin Peaks is a thing that I have rewatched many, many times. And as far as reading, CF, last comment, Borges. This one I hope is quick. A lot of people wondered why Idea Channel has to end. If I want to go on and I want to do something else, why can't the show continue and we can, you know, get another host to replace me? The easiest answer to this is not satisfying, which is that it literally never came up. No one ever actually mentioned this idea. If I can speculate as to the reasoning that it seems appropriate to end the show as opposed to having someone take over, I would say that it is probably that to the minds of the people who make the show, and I think to a lot of Idea Channel's audience, the show is very much informed by my perspective on things. That, you know, the show is, here's an idea, and those ideas are informed largely by how I view the world, what I think about media, how I interpret the scholarship that we use, how those things get put together. And if we were to continue Idea Channel with, another host, there would be two options in front of them. They would either have to somehow ape or match my interpretation of the world, sort of continue on the same thematic journey that we've already been on, and that seems strange or unfair to them, or they would have to develop their own unique perspective on things, and then that show just wouldn't be Idea Channel. And so that is also unfair to them, and I think unfair to a lot of you guys, a lot of our audience. So I think it's much more exciting for that person to have their own show. That is not Idea Channel. And what we're gonna try to hopefully do in this video and in the final Idea Channel videos is talk about how to do that. How to continue the work that we've set out to do, and how to make this show that is yours, that involves your perspective. And I hope that someone will take up the charge. All the letters. No. Rudlofo, I just want to be super clear that unless there's something that PBS hasn't told me, I will not be dying at the end of Idea Channel, and hopefully we'll be making additional new and exciting things. So, I will not rest in peace. I will toss and turn in tumultuous thought. God, I'm accidentally writing a Walt Whitman poem. Lycaon and a bunch of other people wanted to know whether or not Idea Channel is going to be deleted when the show is over, and the answer to that is no. 100% no. No, 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 no. Idea Channel will be on YouTube until YouTube goes away, or for some reason YouTube decides Idea Channel shouldn't be on YouTube anymore. A couple people asked whether or not there are backups. There are studio backups of everything that we have made. I do not know whether or not there is an archive plan. That is a great point and something I will look into. Keep an eye on our Twitter, I guess, or I'll post on the subreddit once I have updates on that. Backpocketpenny is curious about what kinds of things I want to do that don't fit into the Idea Channel mold. So first, I think it's maybe worth explaining what I perceive as the Idea Channel mold, which is to take two or more things that are seemingly unrelated, or to use an unexpected idea to describe another idea, to put things together in unexpected ways in pursuit of a discussion, in such a way that allows us to ask a question that people who have maybe never thought of this relationship before feel armed in order to enter into that discussion. And often to design those topics and those ideas in such a way that they are easy to title. So from my interior perspective, the Idea Channel mold is actually very, very specific. A lot of people, I think, are curious about whether or not this means that YouTube as a golden era is ended, or whether or not the algorithm is influencing, influencing viewership in such a way that educational channels, it's no longer a sustainable thing. I think that's yet to be said, and I think that there are definitely people who are working right now to figure out how to continue engaging the people who want to learn things from YouTube, not people who are just interested in like drama and shouting and cat videos, all of which are, if that's your bag, love it, great. But we, got to make sure that you can also learn if you want to. And I think that it's just, like I said before, it's some growing pains, and that there are very smart people who are trying to figure out, what we tried to figure out 5 years ago. How do you get something that is YouTube-like in front of audiences who want to learn? And there's an answer. CaptainHoers, you can still get a postmodernism hat and other Idea Channel merch. And hey, guess what? Chudley won. It is great to hear from you. Hold on. Oh, we've been saving it for you. This is your postmodernism hat. Someone will message you. I'm so excited that we finally found you. ferociouslcat wants to know the best piece of advice I've ever been given, and I am very lucky that I have worked with a lot of really smart, dedicated people. I've had several mentors in my life, and they've given me tons of great advice, which I should probably just write down really at some point. But the one piece of advice that really stuck with me was my senior year in college. My composition instructor said to me, you work your way through high school, and when you graduate from high school, you think you're a big shot, you get to college, and you're a nobody. You got to work your way all up to the top again. And then for some reason, you repeat it. You graduate from college, you think you're at the top of your game, you think you run the place. You're going to go out into the world and you're going to get famous. You're proud of your work. You spent 4 years in art school. You found your voice. You're doing good things. You're going to go out and you're going to crush it. You're going to become famous immediately. You have classmates that have dropped out of college to become famous. There is a lot of alumni that became famous, so it's like you can feel it. It's in your blood. You've worked up the momentum, and you're going to get out there and you're going to crush it. You're going to make so much money. You're going to show everybody what for. And that's not going to happen. And she said, you got to pay your dues. And you're going to pay your dues for 5 years before you even start to get to work your way up the ladder again. Before you even start to get to be able to be a freshman in the real world. And I looked at her and I said, no way. I was like, definitely not. I am definitely going to move to New York and become famous immediately, and I will make tons of money. And sure enough, she was so right. If anything, it took 6 years before I even started getting work that, would be like what I hoped to do with my life. And it was work that did not pay the bills. And so I think that the thing that has stuck with me is the idea of paying dues, and the idea that paying dues doesn't matter who you are. You got to work at it. You just got to work. And that you might be a big fish in a little pond, but man, there are other ponds, and those ponds are really big. So I think that it's just this idea of work at it, just work. And if you're lucky enough to be able to work enough, hopefully it will pay off. One of the more common requests we got was for a list of shows which are like Idea Channel. I will put a list in the description, but I'll also shout out a bunch right now. And I think that we're going to continue going on with this list and hopefully continue to build it. What's weird is that, and I don't say this to say like, oh, Idea Channel is the best YouTube show. If anything, Idea Channel is sort of like deeply unfocused. And so we got into a lot of different territory. And so I do not know, at least, off the top of my head, a show that covered as many areas as we did. But there are lots of different shows that focus on the types of things that Idea Channel talked about. So there might not be one show that you can go to get the weird breadth of subject matter, but there are lots of people who are approaching art and culture and media and human experience through a critical lens using philosophy, stuff like that. And it's shows like Philosophy Tube with Ollie, who you probably know, Dan Olson's Folding Ideas, Lindsay Ellis is really great, Movies with Mikey. If you haven't watched Movies with Mikey, it's cannot speak highly enough about it, with Mikey Neumann. Art Assignment here on PBS Digital Studios with Sarah Green. The Extra Credits guys who talk so smartly about video games and are just, man, a massive inspiration for us over here at Idea Channel. Errant Signal, which I think I have talked up many, many times, has made some of my favorite, period, YouTube videos. Amor Siendi talks really intelligently about art theory and art history, especially from like a Renaissance perspective, but also applying those ideas to a lot of modern world everyday things. It's a pretty small channel, but I highly recommend him. Give him some love. Nerd Writer, of course. And honestly, this one's a little bit of a surprise, but increasingly, Vox. Like, some of the Vox cultural explainers are just so good, and there are some that I have watched and I've been like, well, I guess I'm not going to make that video anymore. They have scooped us on a couple things. Ace2203 asks a question about the outside perspective that Idea Channel often has on the things that we talk about. That I talk a lot of times about stuff where I am not intimately familiar with, or am not a sort of a practitioner, or like a deeply embedded community member, et cetera, et cetera. And I think this is true across many places, across many of the topics that we've covered, from pieces of media to online communities to, theory that we use, and so on and so forth, that I am not an expert in a lot, if not most of those things. And we're going to talk about this in one of our final 3 episodes where we talk about what the Idea Channel method is. But I just want to talk about it now in order to give a sort of maybe ramp up answer, or to sort of work through this idea in a more conversational way, which is that the goal with Idea Channel was always to talk about stuff that was exciting. and not things that I know about. And a lot of times, those two things are very intimately related, that it's very easy to get very excited about stuff that you don't know anything about because you want to learn about it. And so a lot of times that's what Idea Channel was. And I think that that is good. And I think that that's something that I want to impress upon people who are curious about maybe trying to do something like Idea Channel in the future, or to be inspired by Idea Channel in a way. That one of the things that I felt really strongly about was that not knowing about something was not a condition for us to not talk about it. The existence of the comment response videos, comment response sections, helps with that a lot because, I get to talk about my understanding about something, and then people get to say, well, you're wrong. And then I get to say, oh, yeah, you're right, I was wrong. And then it is like a conversation that you have with a friend who has some misunderstanding about something. And I think for a lot of people that's difficult. But I definitely want to make very clear that I don't think that's a bug. I think that's a feature. And that it's okay to be excited about stuff that you don't know a lot about, and it's okay to explore those ideas publicly, and then to respond to people who have reactions to your thoughts. And that a lot of times it's only your lack of expertise that allows you to look at something in a new way. And that there is a kind of contract that you would hope that you would have with your audience, where they understand the position you're coming from and to treat you with respect, even if you get things wrong, and that you treat them with respect even if they are correcting you. But that I think Idea Channel has proven that it's possible. And I think not only possible, but I think it brings people together. Okay, I think that's enough for now. There were a ton of questions, so I'm really, really sorry if I didn't get to yours. I am going to try to respond to most of the ones that we didn't get to. It's going to take me a little while. It might take me a couple weeks because there were a lot, but there were some very, very good questions that, I want to make sure get answered in a public forum. So keep an eye on, the Twitter, the Reddit. I'll be there talking about stuff. We have a Facebook and IRC and a subreddit. Links to those in the doobly-doo, where you will also find links to my Twitter, Instagram, SoundCloud, and various other places you can find me. And last but certainly not least, this week's episode would not have been possible or good without the very hard work of these people whose lives are not the steeply sloping hour in which you see them hurrying. Okay, that's it.